Hello, everybody. Welcome to another, I dare say, still experimental phase of what I'm calling listener feedback. And you can see joining me again is Peter Serefine, although it's spelled Serefine, if you care to DuckDuckGo, Jibberoo, or FreeSpoke him, author of Trust Shattered. If you see this on video, you can see the book cover behind him there. But today, he's back, more or less, to chime in as a listener to segment one of the show he was on, because Red Pill Strategy, in a lot of ways, relates to his book in that what are the things you can actually get people to buy into, believe, come to understand the evidence and facts without putting their, fingers in their ears and going, blah, 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 inconvenient, does not compute. So welcome to the show, Peter. How are you? Uh-oh. I think we may have to start over. There he's back. He froze for a second. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Sorry about that.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Apparently, I lost internet. I don't know how that happens because I have a hard landline run to my computer, but we'll say it's CIA. They don't want us having this conversation.
Yeah, the NSA. Exactly. I often joke about that. I have a hard RJ45 Cat 7 line, goes to my Wi-Fi modem router also. So in case of Wi-Fi issues, there's a direct line to try to avoid that. But at any rate, yeah, what were your thoughts on Red Pill Strategy? Because again, it kind of relates to your book. What are we really going to get people to believe? We can present them facts. Forcing them to think is a whole other thing, which is going to be another episode called Brain Dead Folks Part 1 and 2. And then jokingly put in parentheses, yes, that's a bit of a harsh title, LOL. But yeah, you can bring people to facts. You may not be able to get them to think. So what is your reaction?
Just like anything else, politics is the same way. You have to meet people where they are. We all have had that experience, whether you're talking to a mechanic or a doctor, or you're talking an attorney, you're talking to somebody who specializes in one particular topic. And let's say it's your doctor, and your doctor is giving you a medical diagnosis. For example, I'll use a real life example. I have plantar fasciitis. I had no idea what the frick that was. I just knew my foot hurt all the time. So I go to the doctor, and he says, "Oh, your plantar fascia is inflamed." I'm like, "What? What's that?"
Yeah, what does that mean
Right.
really in layman's terms, right?
Right. So you have to meet them, whoever it is you're talking to, no matter what the topic is, you have to meet them where they are and then bring them up slowly. So in the case of my foot, it's a matter of, well, the plantar fascia is the connective tissue that runs from the ball of your foot to the heel of your foot. And when it gets inflamed, it wants to shrink, and that makes your foot curl, and anyway, so now I understand it all. But that's how it works with everything else. I told you the new book, Trust Shattered. The whole first part of that is about government being involved in our healthcare in one way or another, medical experiments, FDA revocations, all kinds of stuff like that. What I did, I wrote this book for that purpose, for the meet people where they are. It's written. There are no conspiracy theories in here. There's not even anything in here that anybody could possibly accuse of being a conspiracy theory.
But they will.
But everything in it is something that the government has already admitted to.
But they won't look at that evidence.
Well, then they're just being stubborn and obstinate, and there's nothing you can do.
Right.
A show host a friend of mine who hosts another show. He has two phrases. He says the the don't get it and the never gonna get it. The never gonna get it, you can't possibly switch them. You can't get them to open their eyes long enough to even consider another possibility. A don't get it person is somebody that just doesn't get it. And you can teach them. You can open their eyes. Don't bother. Don't try. The never gonna get it. You're right. There are some people that would pick up my book and read it and go, "Well, this is just right-wing small government talking BS." Even though, like I said, there's nothing in there that's conspiracy. The entire book is, things that are easily proven, the things that the government has admitted to, and I did that on purpose. So the point is, you read the stories of part one, and you go, okay, the Tuskegee medical experiments, the San Francisco biological tests, the Operation Sea Spray, MK Ultra, Project Sunshine, FDA revocations. You read all of this stuff, and then you kind of wrap it up in the conclusion chapter of that first part, and it's like, do we really want the government that has this track record involved in our healthcare at all?
Exactly. And that is not to get into the current experimental that even the father of the mRNA concept said was not ready for prime time.
Right.
He said it. You could see that on video. And things are now coming out from the CDC about, indeed, the heart issue side effects. And indeed, they were approved for emergency use, not properly tested. That's avoiding all of that because over time, more and more will come out, but many are still going to be labeling all that as conspiracy lunacy.
Now, see, I did touch on that in the book, but again, in the idea of trying to avoid the conspiracy lunacy label, I talked about it in that, okay, so here's this vaccine that came about in 6 months. Now let's look back at the previous chapters of this book and see the 100 years of history.
Context.
Why would you have to at least acknowledge that people have a reasonable reason for being skeptical. That's basically what I did in that realm. I agree. They changed the definition of the word vaccine on the CDC website. They used an emergency use authorization, which by definition means it's an experimental drug. And oh, by the way, that means Nuremberg Code applies. So informed consent. And
Oh boy, now, oh, yeah, whoa, hold on, way into the weeds there. Oh, I'm sure we've lost anyone who would be considered remotely middle or left is like, woo, tuning out, tuning out.
right. See, and that's why you don't jump in with that.
Exactly. My whole point of red pill strategy. You don't lead in chess terms. Bad analogy, bad metaphor. You can't lead with your king, but you don't lead in chess with your king. You lead with pawns. You work your way up, build your way to a broader, grander strategy.
Yep, exactly. And that's kind of what I try to do with all of my writing, both on Substack and in my books, is I try to lay out the reasons that I think the way I think, and put it in terms that anybody can understand. I mean, I'm high school educated. I never went to college, so I don't write academic think pieces, whether they're the articles on Substack or my books. None of them are hugely academic pieces. I write for the average person and try to put things in terms that makes the average person go, "Hmm,
Yeah.
that's my goal with
What's that?
everything I do."
What's that group? Things that make you go, right? That song,
Yeah,
right? But again, there's your problem, Peter. You're thinking. You're expecting people to use logic and reason. They want to just sit on their couch and have their feelings confirmation biased for them,
Right.
right? And like I talk about in Red Pill Strategy, will the subsequent Brain Dead Folks 1 and 2, and yes, I know, harsh title, it's meant to be somewhat inflammatory, for a reason and to make a point. But shock, denial, anger, acceptance, like
Mhm.
the stages of grief. As you said, you have to meet them where they are. There's always going to be a shock of someone who first licks that red pill. And then often is a denial. You have to then get them to the anger phase. So they are angry at all those who have been lying to them while you're trying to give them truth to eventually get them to the acceptance phase.
And then the do something about it phase that comes afterwards in this
Well, yeah, we can hope for that. I don't know. It's sad. That's one of the main reasons I started ChristiTutionalist politics. Try to get Christians to recognize the full Bible in full context. Context. I'm having tongue tie like we did the last time we spoke in full context. As a friend of mine, Neil Mammon, has a book, Jesus is Involved in Politics. Why aren't you? Why isn't your church? A
Mhm.
lot of people just shut out a lot of the context about being a good citizen and just warp, render unto Caesar that whatever the government does is, oh, okay, fine. I'm somehow above this all. Well, you will answer, you shall be known by your fruits. If you've done nothing to sow good fruit, and we're all dealing with that rotten fruit that's being reaped, you in part are responsible for that. So that's part of the point of my book. You can't just virtue signal online. You must do things, demonstrate your faith, not beat someone over the head with a Bible. I'm certainly not talking about that. I know you know what I mean. I'm sure 90% of this audience knows what I mean, but it won't surprise me if Media Matters at some point tries to come along, pick and choose something I said, and blow it up like they do with all conservatives.
But even in the spreading your faith, you have to meet the person that you're speaking to on their terms. If you're, on a pilgrimage and you're in some pardon me, some, backwoods third world country who's never heard of Christ or Christians, you can't jump right in and explain the Trinity. You you've got to start with the basics.
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
to meet people where they are. I believe in your last episode, you talked about, with children, you can't hand them a copy of War and Peace or Hugo's Les Miserables. You have to start with, Dr. Seuss and fairy tales,
yep.
and then
And Robin Hood, which is again yet something else, the left twists. They stole from the sheriff who
mm,
was acting on behalf of the king, quote, the state, in confiscating from the poor to give to the state, not just any random rich people,
mhm,
the state, take from the state to give back from those it was stolen in the form of taxation. And no one I know believes in no taxation whatsoever, that something to
that would be
some
great,
degree has to fund some parts of the government. Like
right?
I'm on about a flat tax. I, I think flat tax, no deductions. If 10% is good enough for God, it should be good enough for our government. No deductions. Those who rent shouldn't be subsidizing someone like me who owns a home. I don't have a mortgage currently on it, but if I did, renters shouldn't be subsidizing my mortgage. I don't have children. I thought I would. I planned on it. It just never happened. But me, childless, should not be redistributed to aid and abet those with children. Right? What we earn a small percent to fund all the aspects of government, because I don't care how poor you are. Actually, a lot of cases, the poorer you are, the more you get out of the government.
Mhm.
So why should they pay zero towards things that benefit them?
I've written about taxes many times, in both in books and in articles, and I believe the flat tax is an improvement. But I've recently come to the conclusion. Well, first off, I think there should only be one form of tax, whether it's an income tax, a sales tax, a property tax. I don't care. Pick one, and it's the only one you get. You get what you get, and you divvy it up between county, state, local, federal.
Or do you get like they have in Canada, which is why I am against, where I know you're about to go, the value added tax, the fair tax, unless unless it's part of a repeal and replace of the 16th Amendment. I say no way, because
Well, that is part of the fair tax plan. It actually has if it
it
can,
depends on which one you read,
the
right?
bill
Because
the bill that's floating in Congress for fair tax says that if the 16th Amendment isn't repealed within, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years, whatever, then that bill expires. Then fair tax bill expires.
yeah, that's nice and great in theory.
I don't really like I like the idea of the fair tax. I like
I do too.
the
I do
idea
too.
of sales tax, not value add tax. Sales tax and only sales tax, because then you're only being taxed when you spend your money. Now, and that also gives you at least a modicum of control over how much tax you pay. You can go buy the $200,000 luxury car and pay the tax on that, or you can buy the $20,000 car and pay tax on that, or buy a used car and don't pay tax at all. So you get
Well,
at least a
I'm
mod.
sure they would still tax you on the used car. But here's the flaw in that logic. No Congress can bind a future Congress. The bill, the minute the next Congress goes into session,
Mhm.
it is now all really moot and dead, and they could change it to say, we don't like that repeal part. We're just going to line that out, and you get both taxes. So that's why I say no,
Oh, I
no.
agree.
16th repeal must come, or again, it must be part of an actual constitutional amendment, repeal and replace, for me to support it, because I've been involved in politics since 1978. I've seen enough of this bait and switch. Well, we promise, we pinky swear, and 2 years later, right out the window.
Mhm. But
But anyway, we've gone kind of down other weeds I'd never intended for us to go. And this was just meant to be a quick, brief, short segment on indeed red pill strategy. And we've covered that. So you and I think are on the same page on so many things that we could go for a 4-hour show, but I know no one would watch it. So
my wife wouldn't be happy about that either.
yeah, it wouldn't do any good to do that if people aren't going to do it. So I try to do my shows always less than an hour, and things like this, no more than 20 minutes do I want, even less than that. So there are small bite-sized things people can chew. So thanks again for joining, Peter. Take care. God bless.